Friday and Thursday, and then the Eagles made another big trade. Howie did it again. Howie Roseman, the Eagles GM, was cooking a lot in the NFL draft over the weekend, and the food was really good, and the W and the draft and all the players he got were really good players.
So who were some of these players?
Jalen Carter, uh, back-to-back Georgia national champion, and then the Nolan Carter guy, I think that's his last name, from Georgia, and those are definitely two good players. He helped the safety. He pretty much, I would say, he kind of upgraded the defense a little bit throughout the draft, and then he traded for another Georgia Bulldog who used to play for the Bulldogs, DeAndre Swift. He played for the Lions the last 3 years, and then he's with the Eagles right now. And then he played Georgia. He played on the Georgia Bulldogs in 2019. That was the senior season. So they definitely have a lot of Georgia Bulldogs on their players. I mean, on their team. So that's definitely gonna be interesting. I think that they should be called the Philadelphia Bulldogs or the Georgia Eagles up north.
Yeah, we saw an interesting mashup. It was a cool little logo there where somebody had put on a bulldog face onto the Eagles head. So I thought that was a pretty cool mashup. And I also like the fact I can't remember which of the Carters it was with the drag racing history of trouble. Was it
Jalen.
Jalen Carter. So the fact that you have a couple guys from that Georgia team, from that two-time national champion team coming in together into already a strong Eagles culture that has been curated by Howie Roseman through his amazing draft prowess, and also Sirianni just being a real stand-up person that he is. You have kind of two layers of culture building, or two foundational layers, let's say. You have the Eagles, who are, in Howie Roseman's words, going to wrap their arms around Jalen Carter, and make sure that they do the best that they can, that he does the best by them. And then you also have the familiar faces from the Georgia team that are also going to be there to support him. So it's kind of like two layers that are there. You got the rookie layer from Georgia that's going to make sure that their guy from Georgia is doing the right thing. And then you got the Eagles' overall culture that's going to try to really bring him into the fold and help him do the right thing. So I'm excited to see how that translates immediately into the defensive rebuilding that the Eagles are in the process of doing. Even though they got a lot of veterans there, they also know those veterans at some point in time in the next couple of years aren't going to be there anymore. So I really think that what they're looking to do is to lay the foundation of a strong defense in the future. And also, I mean, it was also brought up, I heard over the weekend in a news broadcast, even if you don't know anything about college football, you know the Georgia Bulldogs are awesome, national champions. And so what did the Eagles do? They dove right into the heart of one of the strongest programs in modern day college football and pulled out some of the big stars, the brightest stars from that team. And that's something to be excited about.
Absolutely, especially when you draft back-to-back champions. So you know that what they can bring, and every team is goal in February is to win the Super Bowl. So I think that if you draft champions, your chances of winning a Super Bowl probably goes up just a little bit. But it also comes with the team, the quarterback, the culture and stuff like that. And I know like players like that Buda Baker guy from a couple weeks ago. He's still in the Cardinals, but even when he was wanted to get traded, he requested to get traded. He said he definitely would want to play with Nick Sirianni because he sounds like a cool guy. So just hearing other players around the league, other team, other players just like respecting Nick Sirianni, that just shows that they want a coach like that who's going to help them win, and he's a winner. And we're just drafting. The Eagles have drafted really good players, I would say, in the recent years, to the point even this year where Micah Parsons on the Cowboys couldn't believe it. He tried to recruit him at Penn State, and then AJ Brown did that thing to him where he gave him a box of tissues through the video camera. So, and then I thought that was pretty funny, but I think that's just the thing, is that like even people who your biggest rivals are starting to understand what the Eagles are about in a good way. So that just shows that what type of respect the Eagles have gained around the league. They have a good coach. They have a good quarterback. People want to play with that quarterback, Jalen Hurts, for the Eagles. So I think that just changing the culture for the Eagles has definitely been a huge thanks to Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni, and all the people they have around that team.
So what other draft news is noteworthy? I mean, we know the Eagles, everybody in this area is really pleased with what they're seeing from the Eagles side of the field. What other teams picked up some notable guys? Like, I know there had been a few names that you had thrown around that could potentially come to the Eagles. They didn't end up doing that. Like, you had mentioned a couple of running backs perhaps that might be in the running, no pun intended, to put on an Eagles jersey this. So where did those running backs go, and what other teams are looking good right now?
So the Falcons got Bijan Robinson
Okay.
he went to the Atlanta Falcons. So I think that was a good pickup for the Falcons. I know that they need help, but I thought they were going to kind of go defense, since they've struggled a lot on defense last year, especially getting off the field, like on third down and stuff like that. So I think that I thought they were going to go defense, but I think that bringing in Bijan Robinson is definitely going to be a good help for them, because I think that they get they get a running back and a good one too. I think that's good news for them. And then we got Joey Porter. My guess is probably going to go to Pittsburgh, and then sure enough, he did. They needed. I think he brings a lot of speed, versatility, and he can play press coverage. So I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers got a good player, and plus his dad actually played for the Steelers, Joey Porter Jr. He was the defensive end who won Ben Roethlisberger's first Super Bowl. He wasn't there for his second one, but he was there for his first. So I think that he's definitely a good player. I think they needed to replace him after they lost Cameron Sutton to the Detroit Lions. And then I was actually a little surprised of how the Cincinnati Bengals draft class. I feel like the nervousness about the Bengals is the safety position, because they really only got like one good safety, and that was in free agency with Nick Scott from the Rams. So I think the Bengals defensive back is going to be a little questionable this year. And I know they probably got a safety, but you're not really sure if they're like a late round kind of draft pick and stuff like that. I know they got Daxton Hill last year, but I still think the safety position can be a little questionable going into the season. So that will definitely be something to look out for. Maybe they make another trade. Who knows? Maybe they can try to get Buda Baker. Something like that. So I think that, and then they got another running back. That was definitely a good move for them, because they got Joe Mixon, who is heading into year 7, and we all know running backs don't last that long in the NFL. And I could see he was starting to hit a little downfall last year. It was starting to become noticeable, and then they lost Samaje Perine to the Broncos. So I think that the other running back they brought in is definitely going to be good help for the Cincinnati Bengals. I was definitely impressed with their draft class, and And I got one funny type of news that I found out over the draft weekend that was definitely, it's not even, I wouldn't say really funny, or I don't, there's no really opinion I have toward it, but the Cardinals actually got some of their draft picks taken away, and they gave it to the Philadelphia Eagles for tampering
Oh yeah.
before Jonathan Gann became the head coach, because he was starting to talk to the Cardinals during our Super Bowl run, like while we were still playing
Hmm.
games, and then they were tampering, and he wasn't really committed. They were saying to the Eagles Super Bowl run, because he was already talking to the Cardinals about getting that head coaching job before. I didn't even know that was a such rule until I found that out. But I'm glad we got them extra draft picks too. Thank you to Jonathan Gann. I mean, it could get it got a lot. It definitely got a lot worse over with Jonathan Gann after what he said about the Philadelphia Eagles media. People were thinking he's kind of like the Eagle. What he said about the Eagles media and about how they're a really hard market to deal with. So people were obviously not happy about what he said about that, and then so I think that it almost kind of feels good to those markets, that seeing that now they just lost some draft picks too. So it's probably not going the best for Jonathan Gann after that, but I think that it's good for him. He got the Cardinals job.
Interesting. Yeah, so there was another kind of story that was prevalent among the social media and the press, the sports press, and that was the story behind the quarterback Will Levis, I think his name is,
Yeah.
and the fact that now I'm not a math genius, but he was a 92% probability for being drafted in the first round. Some people had a 99% sure that he was going to be drafted in the first round. And he sat there through the entire first round, came and went. I think he even left um, Kansas City after the first round. Like he physically left to go home. And he didn't get drafted. He finally got picked up by the Titans around what, like 32,
Second,
34?
yeah, around those numbers,
Yeah.
second round.
And it was starting to come out that he had a so-so combine where his physical performance was decent, but when he started opening his mouth and interviewing with teams, that's when the problem started. A lot of the scouts and representatives from the team were talking amongst each other, and there were, I guess one guy I'd heard was quoted as saying, he just has to close his mouth. He's too cocky. He's answering questions in a manner where he's a little too sure of himself and not quite humble enough to feel as though he's going to be accepting of a new system and really working to understand it. Instead, he kind of appears as though he might come in as if he already knows it or knows better than it and could be a detriment to the new team and is not what they're looking to pay for. Because, first round comes with that fifth-year option, and a lot of teams aren't really going to give that to somebody that is going to give them the issues that they felt Will Levis had. Warts in his game was another quote that I saw. He had warts in his game that would not be easily undone. And I don't know if that's, again, there was a toe injury thing. I don't know if they're referring to the physical aspect or his throwing mechanics or his character. I mean, I don't know if those warts, quote unquote, warts were referring to character flaws, which obviously were coming up. But I just thought that was interesting. I thought it was, I'm not trying to throw dirt on the guy. Sure, he's a good guy. But I thought it was a good message for other players coming up. When it comes to the combine, you have to physically perform. You have to have a good time in the 40. You have to have, good mechanics. Have to show your speed, show your strength. But you also have to interview. There's that whole aspect to it, and I'm sure they get guys to help him prep. But I don't. Obviously, he didn't prep to the level where people were all that impressed by what they heard come out of his mouth.
Absolutely. Like, I just think that he definitely reminded me of someone who sounded sometimes a little extra. I thought the one thing everyone made jokes about was that he puts mayonnaise in his coffee and then eats a banana with the skin peeled. And everyone to make a joke saying that's why his draft number went down. but I really think that he kind of was like a more like like how like rookies come into the league, they think that they're all that they think they could just go up and just win every time, like thinking it's the college level. But once you get to the NFL, you go against one of the best players who are possibly future Hall of Famers. So I think that it's definitely not exactly what you think it always is once you come into the NFL. You've seen guys who are winning championships in college, who are winning games and just doing all these crazy things, and once they get to the NFL, they're just a straight up bust.
Mm-hmm.
They're not good. That they're not who they thought who they thought they were. So I think that there's also been a lot of good quarterbacks who understand. They're gonna go against great players. They're gonna struggle a little bit, but I think that that they're gonna get better, and then they understand that it's not the same level as college. With a bunch of different quarterbacks. Like Joe Burrow, he won national championships at college, and then still winning till this day. But I think he gets it that he's not going against the same players that did at college, because some of those guys who all and Jalen Hurts, Trevor Lawrence, any of those guys played against in college. Probably some of them are not even ready or not good enough to play in the NFL. Just that's just how it works. So I think they understand that all those guys that play in the NFL were made to play in the NFL. So I think that Will Levis needs to I think that is a good option for him to understand that it's a different league once you get into the NFL. It's not like, of course college isn't easy too, but it's definitely going to be different than it was in college and the NFL.
Yeah, going in the second round doesn't seal his fate either. He could completely possibly be an awesome quarterback that takes this as a learning experience, turns it up for a positive, and ends up doing very well for the Titans. So, the Titans could use some of that good luck.
Yeah. Oh.
But I am going to say I do want to go catch the second half of that Sixers game. So let's wrap this up. Okay, so you say something, but then I'm going to go up and go root for my Sixers.
Absolutely, we definitely got to do that. But before we end, so since we're talking about like draft, like second round, they could still be a great quarterback. Who a good example of that is Tom Brady, 6th round draft pick, I think he was.
Yes,
and still was one of the greatest quarterbacks.
Jalen Hurts,
and even Jalen Hurts. So I think that doesn't matter what number you go in, you can still be great, but you still have to live up to the expectations. You're still gonna have people who are going to say this guy was not built to be a first round pick. They're going to be saying that this guy deserved to be in this 6th round pick because of the play style. So you still have to prove everybody wrong, and you still have to play well in the league to show that you're made to play in the NFL. So that's all I got to say about that. So I think that it's a good time to end this and hopefully see